It might be time for you to switch completely to Intel. The crypto market went boom boom, and we have to say goodbye to the bestest boy that ever did live. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your host, Brett. We're gonna be going over the hottest tech news that I can find on this very here internet. And we're gonna start off talking about Intel and their Project Z graphics. You can finally get them. You can switch to Team Blue. You can get an Intel processor with Project Z graphics, and you don't have to rely on the shady tactics of NVIDIA or the unavailability of AMD anymore, right? Because they're now for sale in a CyberPower PC over on Best Buy. As you can see here, it's a Core i5-11400F going for $750. Only 8 gigs of RAM, but you can upgrade that. Only 500 gig SSD, but you can upgrade that. The thing you're gonna want is that Iris Z graphics. That is the dedicated GPU that you can see right in this system right here. This is a big release. They have been available in pre-builts in the past, but not at this scale. The Project Z graphics have been kind of trickling out in dribs and drabs over the past few months, but this is the first like major OEM system integrator who's actually releasing the Project Z graphics into the wild. But the sad news is it's sold out. So congrats to the lucky few who are actually able to pick one of these up. I tried to get one for UFD Tech. It did not work out, but now Intel is apparently coming out as a more legitimate option as options are opening up on the market. Is this something you want to see? Obviously, reviews of the Project Z graphics haven't been too kind. It's very much like an old school GTX 1050, I believe, is the comparison level where it's at. Is that something you want to be buying, especially if you can get it for a $750 price point in a complete pre-built? Or do you want something that's a bit beefier? Or are you happy to have anything in this entire climate and market that's going on right now? Let me know down in the comments, and I'm gonna let you know that the best video game that was ever made, the pinnacle of storytelling, the top tier level experience you could have ever had on any console ever, has now been upgraded to 60 FPS on the PS5. The Last of Us Part 2 now running at 60 FPS. There's been reviews from Digital Foundry. It seems to run pretty smoothly at 60 FPS across the board. So upgrades coming to great games. For those of you who aren't in on the joke, I've never played a Last of Us game. I know Catlin hates it, so I'm just messing with her. Let's get into the crypto go boom boom update. There's blood in the streets, my friends. Bitcoin not doing so hot, down 7% on the day, but that's not as bad as the huge crash it had in the morning, down to under $32,000. You can see its market cap is around 750 billion. At one point, the entire crypto market was down $1 trillion in market cap. Ethereum also having a similar rough day, currently sitting down 21%, again with that 9 o'clock crash being right around $2,000. Part of this is due to some rumblings that have been going on with China saying that they're going to look at banning Bitcoin again, which is something that they've done quite often, but it usually disturbs the markets a little bit. Also, Ethereum coming out with a blog post discussing its transition to proof of stake rather than proof of work, and how much less energy that's going to consume in order to do proof of stake for the cryptocurrency as opposed to the current proof of work, which is essentially when you mine with your GPU. That's proving your work. Proof of stake is a very different system, and as you can see here, you have to zoom in 2,000 times on the chart in order to see the energy consumption of proof of stake versus the current proof of work. And another comparison that they were making, why this would crash the market overall probably isn't the whole story. Nobody can really sum up its multifaceted portions. The entire crypto market could have been argued to be overinflated, as well as the fact that just general unrest in the markets right now could cause such a low spike, anti-spike, downward, what? It could cause the bad selling. Dogecoin also down 23% at the 9 o'clock low. It was at 28%. There were also several exchanges. I believe Coinbase was one that went down because of the giant crash that happened. Everything kind of rebounded after that a little bit, but still down from it. But let's just put this into full perspective, my friends. Dogecoin is still doing all right. Ethereum still doing all right. Bitcoin still doing all right. If you zoom out, when all of these market uncertainties happen, I mean, it could potentially go back down to the point where it was $10,000 or even $3,000 at one point. That is still possible. In the grand scheme over the last year, it's honestly just part of the peaks and valleys that are happening. And something happened that shouldn't have happened. We talked about in a previous episode of Hot News how the Colonial pipeline got hacked, and this was international news, obviously, because it disrupted a major oil pipeline in the US, which led to a lot of uncertainty when it came to gasoline at the pumps and created craziness, which I never wanted to cover because it just fed into the whole thing. Anyways, you know how you're not supposed to deal with hackers and if like ransomware ever affects your PC, you're just supposed to, you know, load in a backup that hopefully is recent enough that everything's fine, especially if you're a multi-billion-dollar industry. You would actually think that you're doing regular backups so that this would never be a problem. Anyways, the CEO of Colonial Pipeline confirming what was rumored out there, that they actually did pay the hackers $4.4 million of the ransom for them to get everything back online, which don't just restore from the backup, have backups. Just, I mean, it doesn't solve everything, but you're not supposed to pay them. And this is a neat feature that Apple is rolling out that presumably you don't have to pay for. I couldn't find any disclosure of monetization transaction that happens with this, but they're bringing in SignTime, which allows you to connect with an ASL interpreter when you need to talk to their customer service for those who actually need it, which is just remarkable with Apple launching this as an accessibility option. I love to see more and more accessibility options get out there. I remember my grandmother, who was deaf and mute, when she wanted to talk to us on the phone, we'd answer and it'd be somebody else talking, and she would type into like a little computer that she had on her end where she put her phone down on top of the thing, and then like her typing got transmitted to the person, and then that person read it out for us. Anything like that is always amazing to see being implemented, and Apple now rolling it out for their customer service and could potentially be rolling it out for further features in the future. And AT&T is going to stop rolling out their overcharging, at least in Washington, D.C., because they are now being asked to pay a $1.5 million settlement because they knowingly violated contracts and hid their overcharge amounts in what they were billing D.C. customers. And so the Attorney General's office in D.C. said, hey, you got to pay for this. And AT&T was like, but we did nothing wrong, but okay, we'll give you the money. And I'm not sure if I want to give Kia my money for this EV, but their 2022 EV6 got announced yesterday, and we have some more details of the electric vehicle. It's going to have a 77.4 kilowatt hour battery with a 70 kilowatt front motor, which will do 0 to 60 in 5.1 seconds. It'll have a GT version with front and rear motors for all-wheel drive and a 0 to 60 time of less than 3.5. Also, the battery is expected to get about 300 miles of range, and it can support DC fast charging up to 800 volts, which is incredible. It will also have vehicle to load charging, which essentially just means that instead of just getting your power from the grid, you could also put power back to the grid, or you could charge another electric vehicle with the electric vehicle that you have on hand. Also, more pictures being unveiled of the EV6, just the interior looking futuristic. Kia kind of stepping it up for this electric vehicle. I kind of half like the crossover. It does have a heads-up display. I'm not 100% sold on it. Obviously, pricing is going to be a big determination as to whether or not it's worth it, but more companies taking the EV transition seriously. And Microsoft is finally taking the transition away from Internet Explorer seriously, because they've announced that it will actually finally, for realsies this time, go end of life on June 15th, 2022, where now you will have to be forced to use Microsoft Edge, which is basically just Google Chrome in disguise. However, this does not affect their long-term servicing channel, which is support for applications and companies that actually need the legacy software for things that are baked in. So that's not affected, but on the end user side of things, you're not allowed to get Internet Explorer anyways. And thanks to one of our members in our Discord, they gave us this vital statistic that you need to know. Obviously, as Internet Explorer usage has gone down, the murders in the US have also fallen as well. Correlation is causation, at least in this instance. Hopefully that's what you want to see. So if Internet Explorer is going away, we can finally have United States peace. Which, by the way, if you want to participate in the Hot News community or suggest articles for me to cover in future episodes of Hot News, you can join our Discord at the link in the video description. You should check out yesterday's episode where we talked about Apple having some big updates coming to their silicon, up to 64 gigs of RAM, 128 gigabyte GPU cores is what I'm trying to say. See you tomorrow, friends. Bye.